Have you ever noticed how often you use the word very when you speak English? Very good, very bad, very tired, very happy, very angry. Now, there is nothing grammatically wrong with these expressions. Native speakers use the word very too, but if you use it again and again, your English can start to sound repetitive and limited. So here is my question for you. What if you could replace two simple words with one stronger, more precise word? Instead of saying very tired, you could say exhausted. Instead of saying very beautiful, you could say stunning. Instead of saying very angry, you could say furious. Already your English sounds more expressive. So today, I'm going to teach you 25 powerful alternatives to common expressions with very. But we are not going to memorize a boring vocabulary list. For every word, I'll show you the meaning, a natural example, and when you can actually use it in real life. And stay with me until the end, because some of the most useful words are words that intermediate learners understand when reading, but rarely use when speaking. Ready? Let's begin. 1. Very tired to exhausted. Imagine you worked all day, traveled for 2 hours, came home, and you barely have enough energy to change your clothes. You are not just tired. You are exhausted. For example, I had 3 meetings and then drove for 4 hours. I'm absolutely exhausted. Notice something important here. We often say absolutely exhausted, not very exhausted. Why? Because exhausted already has a strong meaning. Try this sentence. After working all weekend, I was exhausted. Good. 2. Very hungry to starving. If you haven't eaten for many hours, you might say, I'm starving. For example, I skipped breakfast and lunch. I'm starving. In everyday conversation, people often use starving informally to mean extremely hungry. So instead of, I'm very hungry, let's get something to eat. Try, I'm starving, let's get something to eat. Much more natural and expressive. 3. Very angry to furious. Suppose someone lies to you, damages your car, or makes a serious mistake after you warned them several times. You may feel furious. For example, she was furious when she discovered the truth. Or, my manager was furious about the mistake. Be careful with this word. Furious is much stronger than angry. If someone forgets to bring you coffee, you probably shouldn't say, I was furious, unless that coffee was extremely important to you. 4. Very happy to delighted. Imagine you receive some wonderful news. Maybe you pass an important exam. Maybe you get a job offer. Maybe an old friend surprises you with a visit. You can say, I'm delighted. For example, I was delighted to hear that she got the job. Or, we're delighted to have you here. This word is especially useful because it sounds warm, positive, and polished. 5. Very sad to devastated. Now, this is a strong word. Devastated means extremely upset or deeply saddened. For example, he was devastated after losing the competition. Or, she was devastated by the news. Don't use devastated for every small disappointment. If your favorite cafe is closed, you are probably disappointed. If something deeply painful happens, you may be devastated. That difference matters. Now, quick challenge. I'm going to give you 3 expressions. Try to remember the stronger words. Very tired, exhausted. Very angry, furious. Very hungry, starving. How many did you remember? Keep going. The next group is incredibly useful. 6. Very beautiful to stunning. Imagine you see an incredible view, an elegant dress, or a beautiful building. Instead of saying, it's very beautiful, say, it's stunning. For example, the view from the mountain was stunning. Or, you look stunning in that dress. Stunning is a fantastic word because it sounds natural and expressive. 7. Very ugly to hideous. The opposite can be hideous. This is a strong word, so use it carefully. For example, that sofa is hideous. Or, they painted the building a hideous shade of green. But please be careful when describing people. Calling a person hideous is extremely insulting. Vocabulary is powerful, Use it wisely. 8. Very big to enormous. Instead of saying, they live in a very big house, say, they live in an enormous house. Another example, the company suffered an enormous loss. Notice that enormous can describe physical size, but it can also describe an amount or degree. An enormous building, an enormous problem, an enormous amount of work. Very useful. 9. Very small becomes tiny. For example, they live in a tiny apartment. Or, look at this tiny little camera. In natural spoken English, tiny is extremely common. So instead of, my room is very small, try, my room is tiny. 10. Very old to ancient. If something is extremely old, we can describe it as ancient. For example, we visited an ancient temple. Or, this city is famous for its ancient buildings. But here's something interesting. In informal English, people sometimes use ancient humorously. For example, my laptop is ancient. I really need a new one. The laptop may only be 8 years old, but the speaker is exaggerating for effect. That kind of playful exaggeration is common in everyday English. 11. Very clean to spotless. Imagine a room with no dust, no mess, and everything perfectly organized. The room is spotless. For example, the kitchen was absolutely spotless. Or, she keeps her apartment spotless. This is a wonderful word for describing homes, hotels, restaurants, kitchens, and clothes. 12. Very dirty to filthy. The opposite of spotless can be filthy. For example, your shoes are filthy. Or, the floor was absolutely filthy. Again, this is stronger than simply dirty. A cup with one small mark is dirty. A floor covered in mud might be filthy. Can you feel the difference? That is exactly what advanced vocabulary should do. It should help you express degrees of meaning more precisely. 13. Very cold to freezing. This is one of the most common expressions in everyday English. Instead of, it's very cold outside, say, it's freezing outside. For example, take a jacket, it's freezing. Now, technically, the temperature does not always have to be below 0. In informal conversation, people often use freezing simply to emphasize that they feel extremely cold. You can even say, I'm freezing. That means you feel extremely cold. 14. Very hot to boiling. In informal British English especially, you may hear, it's boiling. For example, can we open the window? It's boiling in here. This means it feels extremely hot. You can also say, I'm boiling. But remember, this is informal and can vary by region. In American English, you may also hear, it's scorching outside. Scorching means extremely hot. For example, it was a scorching summer day. That gives you 2 useful options. Now, I want to test you again. Complete these sentences in your mind. The hotel room was extremely clean. It was spotless. My shoes are extremely dirty. They're filthy. It's extremely cold outside. It's freezing. Excellent. Let's continue. 15. Very scared to terrified. Imagine hearing a strange noise in your house at 2 o'clock in the morning. You might be terrified. For example, she's terrified of flying. Or, I was absolutely terrified when I heard the noise. Notice again, absolutely terrified. Not usually very terrified. This is an important pattern with strong adjectives. 16. Very surprised to astonished. If something surprises you greatly, you can say, I was astonished. For example, I was astonished by how quickly she learned English. Or, we were astonished to discover the truth. Astonished is stronger than surprised and sounds slightly more formal. In casual conversation, you might also hear, I was amazed. Both are useful, but they are not always identical. 17. Very funny to hilarious. This is one of my favorites. Instead of, that movie was very funny, say, that movie was hilarious. For example, you have to watch this video. It's hilarious. Or, His reaction was absolutely hilarious. If something makes you laugh a lot, hilarious is the perfect word. 18. Very boring to tedious. Now, imagine doing the same repetitive task for 5 hours. It is not just boring, it may be tedious. For example, entering all that data manually was tedious. Or, the process is slow and tedious. Here's the nuance. Boring is general. Tedious often describes something that is long, repetitive, and tiring because it lacks interest. That distinction will make your English more precise. 19. Very interesting to fascinating. Instead of saying, the documentary was very interesting, say, the documentary was fascinating. For example, I find human psychology fascinating. Or, she told us a fascinating story. This word is excellent for professional conversations, academic discussions, and everyday speech. And here is a useful phrase. I find it fascinating that, for example, I find it fascinating that children can learn languages so quickly. That sentence sounds polished and natural. 20. Very important implies crucial. Suppose something is not just important, but absolutely necessary for success. Use crucial. For example, communication is crucial in any relationship. Or, it's crucial to check the details before signing the contract. This is a fantastic word for intermediate learners because you can use it in work, education, presentations, essays, and daily conversations. 21. Very careful to meticulous. This is a more advanced word. Meticulous. Say it slowly. Me-ti-cu-less. A meticulous person pays extreme attention to small details. For example, she is meticulous about her work. Or, the report was prepared with meticulous attention to detail. This word is especially useful in professional English. Imagine a software tester checking every tiny detail. You could say, she is meticulous in her testing process. That sounds much more precise than simply saying, she is very careful. 22. Very confused to baffled. Imagine someone explains something to you, but after the explanation, you understand even less than before. You are baffled. For example, I was completely baffled by his explanation. Or, the instructions left me baffled. This word is expressive and quite natural. You can also say, I'm puzzled, but baffled usually suggests stronger confusion. 23. Very crowded implies packed. Imagine a train where there is almost no space to move. Instead of saying, the train was very crowded, say, the train was packed. For example, the restaurant was packed on Saturday night. Or, the stadium was absolutely packed. This is extremely common in natural conversation. A packed cafe, a packed train, a packed stadium. Simple, useful, natural. 24. Very good to excellent. This may sound obvious, but many learners overuse very good. Your presentation was very good. The food was very good. Her English is very good. Try being more precise. The presentation was excellent. The food was delicious. Her English is impressive. Notice something important. Sometimes the best alternative depends on what you are describing. For food, say delicious. For performance, excellent. For a skill, impressive. Fluent English is not about replacing words mechanically. It is about choosing the word that best matches the situation. 25. Very bad to awful. Finally, instead of saying, the experience was very bad, you can say, the experience was awful. For example, the weather was awful all weekend. Or, I had an awful day at work. You may also hear terrible. For example, the service was terrible. Both are common and useful. Now, before we finish, I want to teach you one important rule that can immediately improve your English. Listen carefully. Some adjectives are called gradable adjectives. For example, tired, cold, angry, hungry. These can exist at different levels. A little tired, quite tired, very tired, extremely tired. But strong adjectives like exhausted, freezing, furious, starving already contain an extreme meaning. That is why native speakers often say absolutely exhausted, absolutely freezing, absolutely furious, absolutely starving, not usually, very exhausted, very freezing, very furious. This small grammar and vocabulary pattern can make a big difference in how natural your English sounds. So remember, with normal adjectives, you can often use very tired, very cold, very angry. But with strong extreme adjectives, absolutely is often more natural. Absolutely exhausted, absolutely freezing, absolutely furious, absolutely terrified. Now, one final challenge. I'll say the basic expression. You say the stronger word before I do. Very tired, exhausted, very hungry, starving, very angry, furious, very beautiful, stunning, very big, enormous, very clean, spotless, very dirty, filthy, very scared, terrified, very funny, hilarious, very interesting, fascinating, very important, crucial, very crowded, packed. How many did you remember? Write your score in the comments. And here is another challenge for you. Choose one word from today's lesson and write your own sentence in the comments. Don't just watch English, use it, because the words you actively use are the words you are most likely to remember. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe to the channel and join me for more practical English speaking lessons, real-life vocabulary, communication skills, and confidence-building practice. Keep learning, keep practicing, and remember, you do not need perfect English to express yourself well. You just need to keep improving, one useful word at a time.